अच्छा, yeah. I'm speaking very low volume.
Okay. Yeah, I think we can get started. Thank you, everyone. We're also recording. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. Today, we have Srijit from IIT Delhi, and he's starting off our power electronics talks with sensorless predictive current control of PMSM EV drive using DSO-GI PLL, based sliding mode observer. So we thank Srijit for giving this talk. And please go ahead, Srijit. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. So a warm, very good evening to all of you, and maybe according to your daytime. So greetings. So I'm here to basically talk about sensorless predictive current control of PMSM EV drive using DSOGI FLL based sliding mode observer. So along with me, Professor Beam Singh, who is another co-author. I'm moving on to the slides, condense. So first we'll discuss a basic background about our application, institution, what is our research going on, and the motivation behind the research work, and proposed sensorless PMSM drive control, simulation results, experimental results, and what are the conclusions, and few references. In basically this talk, we will discuss in a different way, where I'm not going into the mathematical equations or the complex kind of equation, whatever is presented in the paper. I just want to give a idea and a feel about the what is the work totally about, and what are the major contributions and how we achieved it, etc. So meet Professor Beam Singh. He is the professor at Department of Electrical Engineering, and he works in a wide range of areas, starting from motor design and renewable energy sources, various power electronic applications, and even solar water pumping. You can see a lot of research is being carried out uh, by him. And myself, Srijit. So I did my bachelor's from a government college in Kerala, and carried out my master's from IIT Gandhinagar, and currently in the process of my thesis submission in IIT Delhi. So moving on to our work. So this work is essentially about sensorless control of PMSM drives, or permanent magnet synchronous motor drives. So why do we use permanent magnet synchronous motor drive? It is the most commonly and widely used electric vehicle propulsion motor, because it is having the highest efficiency, and the form factor and the power density is so high that it's so compact, and you have high power factor also compared to other machines. Of course, there are issues with magnets, but still it is being predominantly used in the electric motor industry. So we know that for the operation of a permanent magnet synchronous motor, which is an inverter fed machine, uh, we require sensors for its operation, field oriented control operation. Basically, resolvers or encoders are being used, and currently Hall sensors are also being used. So those are very much unreliable and sometimes costly also. So for electric vehicle application, they add circuitry wiring complexity also. So cost can be reduced if we can make it sensorless, as well as it will become more reliable. So sensorless control of PMSM is not a new topic. A lot of researchers have been working on it for over decades. So basically, broadly, there are two different methods of sensorless. When we say sensorless, it is position sensorless control of permanent magnet synchronous motor. Yeah, we try to estimate the position and the speed for its operation. So fundamental model-based estimation methods, which are basically back EMF based method or the flux observer methods. Uh, and here we use the fundamental model of the permanent magnet synchronous motor, and from the measured variables such as voltage or current, we try to estimate these variables like back EMF or flux, from which we can obtain the uh, speed and position information. However, as we know, during low speed condition, the back EMF might not be very high value. So there are issues. So those are mostly useful for medium and high speed range applications. However, there is another method like high frequency signal injection method, where we purposefully inject a high frequency signal into the machine, and it is useful for running at only standstill and ultra low speed range conditions. So we need to see for maybe hybrid options also. But in this work, we have focused upon the fundamental model based estimation method. How can we increase the range? Like, as I said, it's from medium or high speed range. Can we increase little bit more the range for the lower region? So basically, it's like the flux observer based method. We know that like machine voltage, V minus IR will be the back EMF. And if we once integrate it, it will become the flux. So stator flux the angle of the stator flux will give the stator flux position. And if you for a permanent magnetic motor, like for surface mounted, especially for a surface mounted permanent magnetic synchronous motor, you can obtain the rotor flux also from that, and from which you can obtain the angle. So this is a basic active flux observer based method. However, it has few disadvantages. We use an integrator. There are like issues when we use a pure integrator, such as DC offsets will be there, harmonics will be there, and moreover, the low pass filter won't be sufficient enough for obtaining the back EMF wave, a fundamental component of the back EMF waveform. You can see on to the right here, like effects of harmonics and DC offset in the back EMF waveform. The blue one, which is hiding behind between the green as well as the red, you can see this, that should be the ideal one, should be the circular form, which is here. It's a hodograph of back EMF alpha beta components. If there is an offset, it will be shifted either, or else if there are dominant harmonics like fifth harmonics, seventh harmonics, etc., and in that case this will be flattened. So it is really difficult. The major problem is like how can we avoid this and obtain a better waveform? That's one another problem here. So this work basically deals with those problem. This is the motivation behind the starting this work. And apart from the back EMF based method, active flux observer method, there are various non-linear methods available. So in that work, we have used sliding mode observer because it's really good, robust, and computationally less intensive also. So this is the system configuration and the specification. So we have used a motor which is a 48 volt DC motor, having a rated power of 3 kilowatt. It has a peak power of 6 kilowatt, and it has a rated speed of 3800 rpm. And these are the motor specifications, and all these machine parameters are experimentally obtained using the test setup. And for simulation purpose, we have used a 48 volt 100 ampere hour lithium ion battery. So this is the system basic system configuration. Now moving on to the control strategy. So as an initial test case study, this was a structure, control structure. You can see here the same 48 volt DC source. It is feeding the motor through a voltage source inverter. And here you have an inner current control loop, and outer there is a speed control loop. The current control loop. So another basic problem is that we try to remove the PI controller. There are like various tuning issues, and it's a classical linear controllers, but there are a lot of non-linearities because of the inverter. And so it is always good to use a non-linear control and get devoid of these PI controllers. So hence we have used a finite control set model predictive control system, which will optimally provide the switching pulses to the inverter based on the planned model. Here the plan will be our permanent magnetic synchronous motor. Uh, in effect, it's a better than the PI control, and we did not tune the PI controllers also. So a lot of advantages are there. And regarding the estimation, sensorless estimation here, this is one typical sliding mode observer where we are sensing the DC link voltage and uh, two phases current, motor current. Third phase can be obtained since it's a three wire system. And based on this, we will estimate the alpha beta components of the back EMF. And once from that, either we can go for arctangent method, which is the basic conventional method, or we can use different kind of PLLs, phase lock loop systems, because we'll come out to that. Here, for the initial test case, we are using enhanced QPLL. Why we use the Q means quadrature PLL. So in the literature, there are different types of PLLs, like tangent PLL, simple quadrature PLL, SRF PLL. Lot of PLLs are there, but as per the research have been carried out, the way this QPLL is model, the from the E alpha and E beta, the equations are formed in such a way that those equations will be independent of the speed information. Generally, the speed and position information will be coupled in the back EMF equations. So these EQPLL basically get rid of the speed information, so that during speed reversal also this will be quite effective. So hence we had taken this as the base case study for our system for estimating the speed and the position. So let's move on to the conventional sliding mode observer. How is the structure? So this, we know the basic model of the PMSM, from which we use a K-signum based observer, a sliding mode observer. So, and once after here, we will obtain the back EMF, and we need to filter it out. So generally a low pass filter will be used. And once the back EMF components, alpha beta components are obtained, you have two ways. One is, as I said earlier, arctangent method. Another one is the EQPLL based method. So arctangent method, you can easily understand, like here E alpha square and E beta square, it's square root of E alpha square plus E beta square will give you the magnitude of back EMF component, and if you divide it by the magnet flux, you'll get the speed. And similarly, you can take the tan inverse of E alpha minus of E alpha by E beta, and then you need to do an offset compensation, so that you have to choose a cutoff frequency with the estimated speed and obtain the compensation value also. You add it along with the this estimated position to obtain the actual estimated value. And this is the quadrature PLL method. So here also we have a PI control. This is much more robust. We are use a trigonometry. If we use simply directly without processing it, if we use a back EMF component and use it arctangent method, there will be noises will be picking up, and there will be spikes, contract spikes will be seen. So you are syncing with the you need to do a closed loop operation. So the closed loop operation won't be happening at a very low speed. So it may have happened at, say, if for a 3800 RPM, for my case it was happening at around like say 1000 RPM or so. And if you use an enhanced QPLL, it's still better. So it gives a speed information and the position, and so it's much better. So we estimated we tried to do the simulation with this, for the simulator performance. We can see that initially the speed demand was 2000 RPM, and at 0.3 seconds we increase the speed demand to 3000 RPM. This magenta color, this color shows the estimated speed. You can see there are oscillations in the dynamic condition as well as during the steady state condition. Also, if you observe here, around 500 RPM, you can see the estimated speed is still around near zero. Initial pooling time of this EQPLL method is larger. So how can we reduce this initial pull-in time? So if we reduce this, obviously we can switch it at little bit lower speed also. That's the basic funda. So because this speed information, in the speed information there are oscillations, you can see from the speed information only we are integrating and obtaining the position information. So this position, estimated position also will have oscillations correspondingly. And here we can see the vector control operation where id equal to 0. And so in this method I have used a surface mounted permanent magnet synchronous motor. So id equal to 0 control will give us the maximum torque per ampere operation. And so IQ follows the suit of the required reference torque and load demand. Everything is working perfectly fine otherwise. How can we improve the performance of this and avoid this pull-in time? Moreover, the low pass filter, the filtering capacity is not good enough actually. So we propose DSOGI FLL, which is dual second order generalized integrator, frequency locked loop based sliding mode observer. So we will discuss about it actually. So also in the previous test case, we have considered on a basic predictive current controller, which will predict like the future values. We are predicting the state variables such as current, alpha, beta components of the motor phase currents from the motor model, plan model. So that is one step ahead prediction. But when we there will be like we are using ADCs will be there, DAC will be there, sensor will have its own delays will be there. So if we compensate those delays, the performance will be much better and the current ripple will get reduced. So we are predicting like two step ahead. Like instead of k plus 1, we predict for like instead of next instant, we will predict the what will be the current reference current value at further another instant, like at the k plus 2th instant. And so the basic working model of predictive current controller is like this. We will measure the current and the voltage, and based on these values and the switching pulses and plan model, which is the basic PMSM model, we will obtain, we already measured the alpha beta currents, and we will generate the reference current. What should be the reference current? And based on the it's a three-phase VSI, so we'll have 7 switching pulse combinations. So for each switching pulse combination, we will try to calculate the what will be the error between the reference value and the actual value, predicted value as well as the actual value. And based on the cost function which will give the minimum error, that particular switching pulse will be chosen and provided to the inverter. So it is a kind of giving an optimal kind pulses, which does not have that same function in when we use a PI controller. So this will reduce the current ripple in good way, that we have observed in our experimental work also. And in the sliding mode observer, we are not changing the basic structure of the sliding mode observer. There is a reason for that. I'll come to that. But instead of enhanced quadrature PLL, we are used dual SOGI. Means we know 1 by S is the integrator in the S domain. So in second order generalized integrator, we use 2 integrators. And instead of 1 by S, we'll have a generalized second order function like omega n square by S square plus 2 zeta omega n plus omega n square kind of equation. We have studied in our control system, second order system. Those kind of integrators will be formed. We need to properly choose the damping ratio as well as the natural frequency. And so let's see how this is in discrete domain, the dual SOGI FLL. But you can see that here there are 2 integrators will be used. This is in a canonical form. You need to get first, we can obtain the continuous domain, and we have used a trapezoidal integration method for implementing discretizing the SOGI, and we have used a backward Euler based method for discretizing the frequency locked loop system. So this current observer dynamics, this is the same, just it is implemented in the discrete domain, that's all. And we have analyzed the stability of the sliding mode observer using Lyapunov based methods. And the gain of the sliding mode observer K should be greater than or equal to the maximum value of the back EMF. That was the condition obtained based on the how to choose the sliding mode observer gain. So we'll come out to that also when we see the simulation, it will be more clear. So the structure, in the structure of this SOGI, we have used the signum function, and further it signum function based so sliding mode observer, and it is being provided through DSOGI FLL. If we analyze the continuous time domain based method, we can see that, let us have an analysis of the Bode plot of the proposed DSOGI FLL with other methods which are generally available. When we use a simple SOGI without any sliding mode observer, generally people use SOGI. This is the Bode diagram. So SOGI or second order generalized integrator is actually an adaptive notch filter kind of characteristic, which it will have a unity magnitude at the natural frequency, and it attenuates all other remaining frequencies. So it will suppress the harmonics, and still it might not be effective enough. So people use like different selective harmonic elimination methods where the dominant harmonics will also be subtracted from, and we will extract only the fundamental based method. These methods are used for flux observer based methods. And here also we can see that at the natural frequency the phase angle is 0. So we will exactly get what is the input, we will get at the output. When we use a flux observer based method, the point is you again integrated the back EMF, and once you obtain the back EMF, you integrate it again and obtain the flux. So it is unnecessary. That's what I felt. You can use directly the back EMF based method itself, because it will have DC offset rejection. We can see that the DC gain is very much less if we compare the second figure. These are the body for the in phase component of the SOGI structure at different frequencies. And you can see that all the DC offsets, the DC offset rejection is very high in this compared to the quadrature component. Quadrature component will essentially give you the flux. So in flux again, you will have to use some other method for removing the offset also. And moreover, the proposed structure, we have used a signum based function. So there won't be any offset at all actually. That offset will be cleared off by the signum nature of the signum function itself. And if we compare with the another published work, which was using a two cascaded structure of SOGI, like there is one SOGI structure and you use another SOGI structure. This red one shows that Bode plot of that one. Without using that another two SOGI structures, by using one SOGI structure itself, but instead of using the quadrature component, if we use the in phase component, we are getting the same performance. Moreover, the cascaded second order SOGI is having some stability issues. If we clearly see it, the phase margin will be drastically reduced. So if there is a kind of some transient or a sudden step change or load change occurs, it can go run over to unstable condition. But in the case of a proposed system, it always remains stable. So by choosing the in-phase component of the SOGI structure, we are essentially obtaining a very good performance, like removing the DC offsets in the estimated back EMF, as well as other harmonics are also being eliminated. So that is the biggest advantage of choosing this structure, this kind of structure. Apart from that, we are using FLL so that the frequency become adaptive. If you use a basic PLL methods where the frequency will remain constant, it might not be effective. In motor drives, our frequency, fundamental frequency of the machine gets varied from 0 to the rated fundamental speed as per the speed condition. So we need to make the frequency also to be adaptive. That's why we have used a frequency lock loop system. And in this system also, in order to improve the transient response, we have added a feed forward path. Those people who are working in grid, they might be able to understand. They essentially use the if you have 50 hertz, you use 2 pi into 50. We will provide an initial feed forward path. But here, so in a similar manner, I try to provide the reference speed. Reference speed is in our hand, so we'll take the reference speed information, use a scaling factor, and provide it as a feed forward path. So by utilizing in such a way, this way, it was seen that the transient performance is improved in a very good way. This can be seen in the results. So these are the simulator performance. As I said earlier, like ID equal to 0 control is being shown here. Here we can see that initially that pull-in time has got reduced, and the transient, even during the dynamic condition also, the position is essentially trying to match over with the reference speed. And we can see the position. There is a bit of delay because we have used a pre-filter, which is a low-pass filter itself, so it is a delay due to that. It was essential for improving the um, performance of the SOGI. Unnecessarily, we need not provide a large bandwidth for the SOGI. Actually. So how to choose the value of sliding mode gain? As I said earlier, based on the Lyapunov stability condition, it was seen that that value should be almost equal to or near around the maximum value of the back EMF. So for a 48 volt motor, which I used, the value of the maximum value of the phase back EMF will be 27.7 or so. So we have chosen 27 itself as the gain. If we increase the sliding mode gain, there won't be much use, and also the chattering will get increased. So it is better to choose a value near to the maximum value of the back EMF. And so how to choose the feed forward path scaling factor in the structure? As I mentioned earlier, there was a scaling factor which I was using uh, for converting the reference speed into the feed forward path. So how to choose that gain value? So we conducted some simulation studies. So we had chosen two sets of feed forward gains. One is dynamic gains, which varies along with the reference speed. Another one is constant frequency gains, feed forward value, which is based on the fundamental frequency. So when we observe during the dynamic condition, all in both the cases, during dynamic condition as well as the steady state condition, the uh, feed forward frequency, which uh, varies with respect to the reference speed, that outperforms the constant value feed forward gains. So the last three set of values we have neglected, and out of the other three, we can see that during the dynamic condition, if you see, uh, the higher value of feed forward path is almost nearer to the reference speed, whereas during the steady state condition, the lower value of feed forward gain is giving better performance almost nearer to the reference speed. So in order to optimally choose one, we have chosen the middle value, which is root 2 times of the omega ref. That's how we have chosen the scaling factor for the uh, FLL, feed forward gain. Also, we have conducted study for parameter variation, because those are important aspect. Like in vehicles, we know that resistance is dependent upon the temperature. That temperature will be very high. So based on that, resistance value may get increased, and also inductor may get saturated also. So the value in inductor value can get reduced also. Actual value of inductor can get reduced also. So we have conducted increase in the resistance and decrease in the inductance. Based on that, it was seen that this proposed control performs perfectly well. Actually, it performs much better. And also this is speed performance estimation performance, this is position estimation performance. So there were not much difference, and proposed control was doing well. Now moving over to the experimental setup. So we have a low voltage, high current kind of system. This is the test motor we have purchased from Golden Motors. It's a 48 volt, 3 kilowatts. So the rated current is 85 ampere, and the peak current is 200 amperes. So in order to have that much capacity, we did not have battery initially, so we try to use an auto transformer and a step down transformer, so that we will reduce the voltage and increase the current capacity. And this is a, then we rectify those and put it over to the DC link capacitor, and we use an inverter, and those are given, those wires are given to the motor phase windings. So we need a sensor operation. So we have chosen sensors, and there will be like pulses will be given, provided to the inverter. Uh, so control, our control, we implemented it in a micro lab box, DSpace. And so the other side of the, this is a test drive motor. So other coupled motor is phase windings are connected to the diode bridge rectifier and further connected to the load bank, so we can load the machine. So moving over to the experimental result, here we can see the starting performance. So this is the estimated speed. Even at the very low speed, the speed is getting estimated. Initially, we did a ramping IF method, starting method was used, and once the position and matches well, then we switch over to the closed loop operation. So you can see the estimated position and reference position, those are matching well, and the current is getting increased, the frequency as well as the magnitude. And similarly, these are the estimated speed and the reference speed, and reference position and the phase current. So since this is a laboratory kind of environment, we did not want to increase the current rating, so we are limited it up to like say 60 ampere or so. So we don't go, even though we have tried beyond that, but still for the safety purpose we have limited the current to 60 ampere. While in the simulation you can see I have provided the rated current, ample current like 200 ampere as per the rating itself. And now these are the steady state results, where at different speeds like low speed, medium speed, high speed, you can see the estimated position is matching along with the reference speed, and the errors are also provided. And these are the phase current waveforms. It is having ripple enough because we are using a predictive control, which is also a variable switching frequency control. So there will be switching noises, and moreover, this is a low inductance motor. So there will be higher switching torque, current ripple will be there. And the back EMF estimation performance at a lower RPM is shown here. So just at the output of the pre-filter, which is essentially the basic sliding mode observer, you can see that estimated back EMF, and its FFT and the hodograph, whereas in the figure B and D, it is corresponding to the DSOGI FLL algorithm. So it is clearly seen that adaptive notch filtering capacity, we can see the harmonics are, the ripples and harmonics are being eliminated at very low RPM, at 400 RPM itself. You can see based on the scattering is highly reduced also. And so as we move further to the higher speed, we can see the performance again improves, and the hodograph become almost a kind of circular kind of condition. And similarly, the FFT also can be seen. The waveform is clearly indicative of the filtering capacity of the DSOGI FLL. Now, these are the dynamic results where the estimated speed matches with the reference speed. You can see there is acceleration, deceleration kind of also, and the step change kind also. Even during step change, it tried to catch up much faster, almost equal to the reference speed. These are due to the feed forward path which we have considered. Otherwise, it would have taken little bit more time. And the load change results are shown here at a constant speed. You can see that when there is a step load change, IQ follows IQ reference, and ID is almost remaining 0. So this shows the effectiveness of the predictive controller also. And we have compared with the EQPLL based method. As I said earlier, you can see when the machine is started, you can see the initial pull-in time. It was taking little more time. Of course, once it gets latched with the estimated speed, it keeps on latched with the reference speed. As you change the dynamic, it is working well. But there's initial time, for vehicles and all, when we ride, there will be a lot of frequent start stops. Like we basically run at low speed also. So it is highly essential if to obtain a good performance, the lower speed also. You can see the uh, estimated speed of DSOGI FLL, it matches almost at same time as that of the reference speed. And also the oscillations are also not seen in the estimated speed waveform. So these are the experimental results of the which we compare with the current state of art of sliding mode observer based position sensorless method. So I'm concluding here. So we have seen in this paper a novel sliding mode observer based speed and position estimator is used for a delay compensator predictive current control PMSM EV drive operating in vector control board. And this method is simulated as well as experimentally validated in a low voltage high current EV testbed setup. You can see just behind me, actually it is the testbed setup. I'm sitting over here. And the different features like the sliding mode observer plus the DSOGI FLL, that particular combination has big advantage over to the conventional flux observer based methods. We don't need a multiple SOGI structures as when we use a back EMF based method. Basic method also, the harmonics are suppressed, DC offsets won't be there. And this has obtained by using the in-phase component of the SOGI structure rather than the quadrature component, we have achieved the performance of a cascaded second order SOGI FLL without compromising the stability. And the addition of feed forward path term in the FLL has clearly enhanced the transient response of the adopted method. And in this one, the robustness of the sensorless estimator under parameter variations are also considered. So, and also we are compared along with this method along with another state of art method of a sliding mode observer. So I conclude here, and these are some of the references. The first one is the paper itself. I have borrowed a few results from the other two papers in order to show you what the basic background and the problem statement. So thank you very much for patiently listening out to the talk. I think I concluded much faster, I guess. So if you have any queries,
thank you.
You can ask. Thank you very much for providing me an opportunity on this platform to share my work. Yeah. Any questions? I'll be happy to answer.
Yes, Srijit, thank you very much. There are some questions.
Okay. Should I have to stop the share in order to see the questions? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So shall I answer one by one?
No. We'll just Adrish, can you please go ahead? Unmute yourself and please go ahead, Adrish.
Yes, sir. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Sir, thank you for your presentations. I have few questions regarding the predictive control.
Sure. Yeah.
That is, what is the switching frequency range when you are implementing this control technique?
Okay. See, I have implemented with the sampling time, switching frequency is highly varying, right? For a predictive controller, it's a variable switching frequency based method. So based on the sampling time, I can like I have chosen a 40 microsecond sampling time for implementing the system, and I have seen that the generally as per the theoretically also the switching frequency range varies from fs f by 5 and 1 by 5th and 1 by 6th of the sampling time frequency actually. So and I have observed it almost maximum at max around 3 kilohertz only actually. Yeah, if we
Okay.
go further less sampling time, the performance will be much better. You require more computation also. So DSpace has its own limitations. So I chosen 40 microsecond and it was giving a satisfactory performance. Yeah.
40 microsecond, that means it little bit larger than the 20 kilohertz probably.
Yeah, but
So
you won't get exactly 20 this as I said, it will be running at say around 3 maximum 3 kilohertz only. I
oh,
once tested it, but it was not going beyond 3 kilohertz actually, the switching
okay.
frequency. Yeah.
No, can I know what is the lower limit of it then?
Lower limit, it can go even 800 hertz also. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then for 800 hertz, how
Yeah.
do designing your speed controller, PI controller value? Because in that case, bandwidth will be very slow, bandwidth will be very less. So how
Yeah,
do you
but
designing your PI controller?
no, I did not design it. Actually, I use simple trial and error method. It's like uh, the
Maybe he chose the
different ways.
best one, Adrish, the best one among the. How did you go about Srijit? Any?
Yeah, actually, while doing the experimental setup, uh, which initially we keep K0 and increase the value of KP. Like
Okay,
it's a meta heuristically, I could say.
understood,
Okay, okay,
understood.
okay, okay. And second thing
Okay.
is that, sir, this predictive control generally the theory suggests that it is used for medium voltage drive systems. Uh,
Okay.
so for your case, it is 48 volt motor.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
for that reason, probably the in result you have told that there are some harmonics in the waveform. So I am feeding that harmonics current inside the predictive control algorithm to decide my future switching state. So I'm asking does it depends? How does it affect in my algorithm if I provide the harmonic current inside the algorithm to decide my future switching state?
Yes, yes, yes. See, it's a nonlinear control, so we can add lot of constraints in the cost function itself. There are different methods. Once, if you add like a switching frequency constraint, you can reduce the switching frequency. Also, inverter nonlinearities, dead time, everything you can compensate. But here, in my case, I have chosen basic one with two-step ahead prediction just for delay compensation only. I did not even already the switching frequency is too low, so I did not go for again another switching frequency constraint. uh, yeah, so
Okay,
that can
so
be implemented. The performance would be better actually.
okay, so you are feeding directly that whatever sensed current is from your sensor, that current has been fed inside the algorithm. There is no
Yes.
filtering.
No, I did not filter it. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another thing is that you have told that your estimation schemes may be parameter dependent. That's why you have studied uh, how much it's vary with the parameter changes.
Exactly.
But the predictive control also design on the based on the plant model equations. So
Yes.
the algorithm also depend on the parameter mismatch, the
Yes.
predictive control algorithm itself. So have you studied or what is the
No,
observation?
I did not study that actually. That is really a good observation. Actually, predictive control heavily depends on the plan model, so it can have steady state errors. There have been lot of literature. There are lot of literatures um, which talks about that actually. Also, some stability concepts, etc. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I did not consider those. Yeah. My
that is
main
not-
focus was actually on the estimation per side, but still I just wanted to eliminate that PI controller. So I had chosen that as a base model. I did some improvements over to that base model, and main focus was on the estimation part actually.
Yeah, that was not the
Okay.
focus here. Adrish, you can introduce yourself so that Srijit knows your background,
Sure.
and then
Okay.
you can come back.
One more question. I have last
Yeah,
question.
go ahead.
One more.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
sure.
In your EQ PLL loop, the block
Okay.
diagram, what you have
Yeah,
shown,
you can go to that slide.
There-
Srijit,
Yeah,
maybe.
sure.
slide 7 probably.
Okay, yeah.
There is a PI controller.
Yes.
So here also you have made the gain of the PI controller by trial and error, or
No,
it
no,
has
no,
been
no.
designed.
Actually, it was designed. So, it was designed based on by choosing the fundamental frequency. Sorry, natural frequency and the damping factor. We can choose different values. Like I have chosen. I think I don't remember whether I mentioned in the paper, but okay, this was another work, right? Okay, yeah. So. We can do it with trial and error also, but we can do it theoretically also. If you do it theoretically, you will achieve bigger bandwidth also, but always theory does not apply in the practical scenario, right? We won't be considering some issues. So I have tried with both also. The PI controller value, if I remember, maybe 8 and 10 or something also I have tried. Also I have tried based on theoretically like 177 and 15,971. Likewise, I chosen bigger values also. It depends, like whether you want a bigger bandwidth or how should be the performance. It's always experience counts.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Adrish, you can introduce yourself. Otherwise, yeah.
Yes,
Introduce
sir.
yourself.
I am working on induction motor drives. I am in IITSM Dhanbad. I am doing my PhD there.
Great to know you. Thank you very
Thank
much
you,
for
sir.
attending that seminar. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
we'll have a few more questions. Shaili, you can go ahead. Slide 10. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, sir. My question to you is, you have used discrete domain to see the errors. So can you say what?
No, see,
And you have also used time domain. So
yeah, please continue.
yes, sir.
See,
So like, is there any advantages we will have if we use discrete domain for errors that you have measured?
No, actually, you can implement it in continuous domain also. I could not get you errors in discrete domain. I didn't get that. You're talking about which error?
I think some issue is there. See, she has typed out her question. What was the need to check errors in discrete domain? Any advantage for being in discrete domain?
Yeah, but which error? Actually, I could not get what is that error.
The current observer error dynamics in discrete domain is in this slide 10 you have written in the first slide. Error dynamics in slide 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe are you confused with the back EMF as error E, or I didn't get that actually. That
is
part.
It a current error or?
It's not error. Actually, it is a back EMF actually.
Okay. I get it. I'm getting.
Yeah.
And one more question which I have, that you have used QPLL. Not a lot of literature is available in QPLL. So my question is, why did you choose the flux of Q axis? Like, how will it affect speed, and why the Q axis will affect the speed and position? Like, what was the reason of choosing the Q axis flux?
For the SOGI FLL you are talking about?
Maybe, Shaili, your audio is breaking up a lot.
Yeah, it's voice.
Just post it in the chat. We'll come back to you. Just post it in the chat. Your audio is breaking up a lot. Okay. 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 Meanwhile, Srijit, I had one question. What was your startup sequence? How do you start up your What is the startup sequence?
It was a IF based method, current frequency. So what we generally do, we have our reference speed, right? So from the reference speed, we can integrate it and obtain the reference position. One position, particular position will be obtained, and that position we will provide it over to that DQ transformation also, so that the current whichever, if I go to say any of this one, so here you can see in the slide, so this start position we are essentially obtaining from the reference speed itself. Actually, the speed we initially we will ramp it slowly, like 0, 20, 40, 60 likewise. So when we ramp it accordingly, when you integrate it, you will get a ramped up position also. But once you integrate the speed, you will get the position, right? So and that position is fed over to this DQ to alpha beta, so that the current which is generated, it also get ramped up with the frequency, right? So this is a kind of much more stable method than V by F method. I have given the literature in my reference list in that paper. Professor Blabjer's paper it is actually. So this method was sufficient, quite good actually. They have named it as IF method, current frequency, IF.
And in this, you don't have any space vector based modulation, right?
No,
Here?
no. I have not used it. Actually, that would be a better idea. Instead of providing this switching pulses directly, because it's a variable switching frequency, rather than choosing this, you can obtain what is the corresponding reference voltage vector, and you can use a space vector to generate the switching pulse. So in that manner, you will get a fixed frequency also, and the performance will be better. Actually.
And in slide 11, in the B figure, you talk about rejection ratio. Can you just expand on that? Yeah. What is happening here?
Yeah, actually, there are 2 points. First point is, basic thing what we are doing here is, we have an input signal here. It is having some harmonics or maybe some offsets or whatever it is, and we are obtaining this filtered form of that, this Z alpha, we are obtaining the filtered form here, and then we use this filtered form here. So how much filtering capability it has, it is based on this Bode plot. So if you see this, these are like at different frequency. When the machine is running at say 10 hertz, this is the Bode, and the machine is running at 100 hertz, then this is the Bode. So this is corresponding to 10 hertz. At 10 hertz, you have a magnitude, unity magnitude, and the phase is 0. So you will exactly get the same signal, but if you see the nearby, there are like all other frequency values will be rejected. So the harmonics will be suppressed over here. And as we keep on increasing the frequency because of the FLL, this Bode gets shifted according to the frequency also. So when the motor speed is increased to 100 rpm, again at 100 rpm, what is the fundamental value? You obtain that. At 253 hertz, what is at 250, the fundamental value? You will obtain that. So harmonics are suppressed. And moving over to the DC gain, if we see, if you talk in terms of, this is given in decibels, when you change it out to the absolute value, you need the input signal and output signal magnitude has to be 1, right? It should not be attenuated, or it should not be more value. So if you convert into absolute value, you can see that here it will be there is like this black one, it corresponds to the quadrature component. If you would have used a quadrature component, there will be some positive DC gain value will be there. So if there is any offsets or anything will be, that will get reflected at the output. But for this in phase component, if we choose, it is a negative value, and that DC gains will be rejected at the output actually. So in that way, the offset as well as the harmonics will be suppressed in this method actually. So this is much more better.
Very good.
Yeah.
Others, if you have any questions, you can go ahead. And also in slide, go ahead, Adrish. Go ahead.
Sir, I have a question regarding micro lab box.
Sure.
Sir, generally in other DSpace,
Mhm.
DSpace 1103, what we do, we make the simulations model in the MATLAB, then dump it in the processors and access it through the control decks.
Yes, of course.
So I do not have direct command on the code, what is generated, what is dumping in the processor.
Yeah.
So MicroLab box also has the same thing, or does it access over the code?
Auto-generated code, I believe.
It is auto-generated. It is similar way, but if you want to access the code, see, when you build it, that C code, header files, footer files, all are getting generated. They are doing it automatically. We have a GUI. That's all the difference. So if you see the files, the .c or .h file, you can get the code also. That's not a big deal. But that will be kind of raw code, won't be optimized. When you code it in your C, when you code it, it will be kind of optimized code. When that get generated, a lot of other files also get dumped upon it.
But Adrish, why do you want to do that?
Oh, why I am asking that? I have seen in your paper there is a reference of Professor Rodriguez's book.
Okay.
So there they have provided few concept regarding this predictive control, very specifically for induction motor drive. There they have used the sampling frequency of the integrations and the sampling frequency of entire algorithm separately. So separate sampling frequency.
Yeah, multi-rate sampling can be done. That is possible.
So that is not possible for MicroLab box or DSpace if I do not have
possible. I have tried that actually. See, in the if you choose that particular box, whichever is subsystem or whichever maybe say speed control you have put in one subsystem, or even this will be you write in function code, right? This predictive control. So if you right click it, you can see there will be system properties or subsystem property, model property, something will be there. In that one, there will be a checkbox like treat as atomic bots. Treat as atomic bot. If you check that, then you can put a particular sampling time for that also. Even otherwise, you can use a triggered kind of subsystem. You can refer lot of MATLAB examples where they have provided a triggered subsystem. You can provide a separate sampling time for that also. There are different approaches, ways of doing it.
Adrish, maybe offline you can email.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Shaili, do you want to go ahead?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, my second question was regarding QPLL. Specifically, like, why did you choose the flux to be the Q-axis flux? Like, how does it affect your position and speed? Like, how does Q-axis flux will affect the speed and position?
No, actually, I think you have got mixed up with the QPLL and the flux observer mesh method. So what I will do is, I'll move out to here. So I think you're talking about how the quadrature component is becoming flux and this is becoming the back EMF. I think is this your question?
Yes.
And why didn't you take this one and why did you choose this one?
Did you take? Yes.
Yeah, so that's what I explained. Actually, generally all the people, they try to use flux observers. So they take the, if we see the basic method like V minus IR, okay. So when V minus IR is your back EMF and the steady state condition, right? Voltage, phase voltage minus I into resistance drop. Whatever is the terminal voltage minus the drop in the resistor will get the back EMF. So then you integrate it, then you obtain your flux E equal to N d phi by dt.
Okay.
Right, flux linkage, you will get it, flux linkage. So that's what we are here we are doing also. Here in SOGI, we have two integrators, but the in phase component, once again, when you integrate it, you will get the quadrature component. Okay. So if we choose the in phase component, what is the advantage? And if we choose the quadrature component, what is the advantage? So from this border diagram, as I mentioned, the DC, this offset rejection ratio is higher when we choose a in phase component. If you use a quadrature component, there can be offsets actually. So in order to avoid that, I have chosen this one. So in another paper, what people have done is that they have chosen two SOGI structures and cascaded it together to obtain this kind of this red kind of body diagram. So why to do that? Actually, we can use the in-phase component directly and obtain the same nature. So people unnecessarily make things complex, right? So that is not required. So we have saved a lot of computation actually.
Yeah, maybe you could compare. Oh, is there any way to compare computational resources in Microlab box?
Yes. You can. I have done like the overall total control algorithm along with the ADC sensing DAC, whatever it was coming around 17.68 microseconds. So it was pretty low computation actually. This method. Yeah.
Okay, I think Shaili, does that answer your question? Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, Srijit. We won't keep
Thank
you anymore. Thank you very much. Thank you
Thank you
very
very
much for
much.
your time.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
And thank you everyone for your questions. And I think we'll let Srijit go. And hopefully we'll see more publications from you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
So, thank you.
Sure. Thanks a lot. Okay. All take care. Bye.